The road is empty. The clock on the dash reads 2:14 in the morning. The driver is humming along to a song he won't remember the name of by sunrise. And then, in the slim window between two heartbeats, something steps into the headlights that should not be there. 5 drivers, 5 separate roads, 5 dashcams that kept recording long after the brain inside the car had already given up trying to understand what it was looking at. In every one of these clips, the moment the figure appears, the driver does the same thing. They stop talking, they stop breathing, and the camera, mounted to a piece of plastic on the windshield, keeps rolling because it is the only thing in the car that does not know to be afraid. You do not see a creature on a rural highway the way you see a deer. A deer makes sense. A deer fits inside the part of your brain that handles night driving. What these 5 drivers caught on tape does not fit anywhere. It stands wrong. It moves wrong. It looks back at the camera in a way that animals do not look back at cameras. 2 of these recordings, the way the story is told, ended up on local news segments that the stations later quietly pulled from their websites. One supposedly went viral before the original poster scrubbed every other video off his channel. One is told as a story that ended up in a sheriff's incident file. And the last one, the way it gets passed around, was never meant to be public at all. Leaked, people say, by a tow truck driver hired to recover the vehicle after the family inside refused to drive it home. The first clip you need to know about comes out of Pennsylvania, October of 2017, on a stretch of Route 18 outside the small town of Hookstown in the western corner of the state. In the telling, the driver was a 41-year-old delivery contractor finishing up an overnight run, and his dashcam was a stock unit mounted just below the rearview mirror. At 3:42 in the morning, his headlights swept around a slow curve and lit up what he initially thought was a man standing in the middle of the southbound lane. He braked hard. The figure did not move. As he rolled closer, the dashcam caught what every viewer who has seen this clip ends up rewinding 3 or 4 times to confirm. The figure was over 7 feet tall, its arms were nearly down to its knees, and its eyes, when the headlights hit them straight on, lit up the same flat amber color that a deer's eyes do, except mounted in a face that local researchers have spent 6 years trying to identify. In the version that circulates, the driver later told a Pittsburgh radio interviewer that he sat in the cab for almost a full minute with his foot on the brake before he finally rolled forward and the figure stepped, in a single fluid motion, off the road and into the tree line. The proportions in the clip get compared, again and again, to the 1952 Braxton County, West Virginia, sighting that kicked off the whole regional folklore around the Flatwoods monster. People who have studied the file argue back and forth over whether anything in it was staged or doctored, and they have never settled it. The driver, as the story goes, still runs that same route. He just stopped working overnights. The second case comes off Interstate 4 in central Florida, the 132-mile stretch between Tampa and Daytona Beach that locals have called the I-4 dead zone for almost 40 years. The piece of road that matters is a quarter-mile span just west of Sanford, built directly over the unmarked graves of 4 German Catholic immigrants who died in a yellow fever outbreak in 1887. Hundreds of accidents have been logged on that exact bridge stretch, far above the statistical average for the rest of the corridor. The dashcam recreation that has circulated since shows a black sedan slowing on the inside lane at roughly 1:30 in the morning. As the camera passes the sedan, the footage shows a woman in a long pale dress standing in the median, looking directly at the lens, with no shoulder vehicle nearby and no foot traffic anywhere within a mile of that bridge. By the time anyone could double back, the median was empty. Coverage of the I-4 dead zone going back to the 1990s catalogs hundreds of accidents on the same stretch. And Florida folklorists, including Charlie Carlson, author of Weird Florida, have collected story after story of drivers reporting figures standing in the median moments before collisions. The version that gets passed around always cuts away at the same point, which is the moment the woman appears to turn her head and track the car as it passes. The third case is the one that, in the retelling, ran on regional Texas news for nearly a week before the story quietly disappeared. June of 2020. A rideshare driver on a deserted stretch of US 90 east of Del Rio picked up what he believed was a stranded motorist near a closed gas station at around 11:40 at night. His dashcam, mounted on the windshield and angled to cover both the road and the front passenger seat, is said to have captured the entire encounter. The man who climbed in was wearing a long coat in 91-degree heat. He gave an address that did not exist when the driver later checked it on his app. He sat completely still for the first 8 minutes of the ride. He did not blink. The footage is unsettling not because of anything dramatic, but because of how wrong the small details are. The passenger's reflection in the side window does not match the angle of his head. His shadow on the dashboard falls in a direction the streetlights cannot account for. At the 11-minute mark, the driver glanced up at the rearview mirror, asked the passenger a routine question about the destination, and the dashcam audio picks up a response in a voice that does not match the mouth movements visible in the cabin shot. The driver pulled over at a 24-hour truck stop, claimed he had a tire issue, and asked the passenger to step out. The passenger did, without argument, and walked into the dark in the direction the car had come from. As the legend is told on the late-night radio shows that traded it back and forth, a short segment eventually surfaced online, and the people who picked it apart swore the passenger's voice has no measurable breath intake before any of his spoken responses. The fourth clip comes out of New Mexico, specifically a Bureau of Land Management access road south of Cuba, New Mexico, just before midnight on a Tuesday in August of 2021. In the telling, the driver was a wildlife biologist returning from a tracking survey, and his dashcam was a high-resolution Garmin unit purchased specifically for documenting nocturnal wildlife. What it is said to have caught instead is the clearest dashcam recording anyone claims to have of what witnesses across the Southwest have spent 30 years calling the chupacabra. The biologist's lights picked up a low quadrupedal animal crossing the dirt access road at roughly 45 feet in front of his vehicle. The creature is hairless. Its spine ridges sharply along the back. Its hind legs are visibly longer than its front legs, giving it a hyena-like gait, and the eye shine in the dashcam footage clocks at a deep red rather than the green or amber typical of coyotes and feral dogs in that region. The biologist himself was the first to publicly state that the most likely explanation was a coyote with advanced sarcoptic mange, which strips fur and changes bone-visible posture. But the field notes attributed to him recorded a body length of approximately 4 feet 2 inches and a shoulder height of roughly 22 inches, both of which would sit outside the documented range for any mange-afflicted canid recovered in New Mexico in the past 2 decades. As the story goes, the biologist refused to identify the exact coordinates of the encounter, citing concerns that hobbyist hunters would flood the area. New Mexico has been chupacabra country in the popular imagination for 30 years, and this clip lives on as one more entry in that long tradition. A low, hairless red-eyed shape crossing a dirt road right where the high beams begin to fade. The fifth case is the one that nobody on this list has fully recovered from, and it is the only recording where what appears on the dashcam reaches forward and physically touches the vehicle. The location is a 2-lane stretch of Vermont Route 105 between the towns of Island Pond and Norton in October of 2022. In the telling, the driver was a 58-year-old retired schoolteacher driving her teenage grandson home from a hockey practice. Her dashcam, a Christmas gift from her son the year before, was mounted on the rear window as well as the front, giving the recording a rare 2-camera angle. At roughly 9:50 at night, the headlight swept past a section of dense pine, and the rear dashcam, the one pointing back into the trees the car was leaving behind, captured what every viewer fixates on. There are eyes in the trees, not one set, not two. The count people give for the highest resolution upload is 7 distinct pairs of reflective points, none of them at the height of a deer, none of them at the height of a bear, all of them spaced roughly 60 feet apart along the tree line, all of them tracking the car as it passes. The teacher did not see anything in the moment. Her grandson, sitting in the back, told her to drive faster. She did. 40 seconds later, the front dashcam picked up a single heavy impact on the passenger side of the vehicle, hard enough to rock the car and crack the side mirror, with absolutely nothing visible on either camera that could have caused it. They pulled into the family driveway 18 minutes later. She called a tow truck. She refused to drive the car again. In the version that gets retold, the tow truck operator who recovered the vehicle the next morning is the one who passed the dashcam files along to a regional radio host, and the official explanation came back as a probable deer strike. The driver and her grandson, the story goes, never accepted it. No deer made that sound, and no deer left the impact mark, which curved upward across the passenger door at a height of nearly 5.5 feet. Here is what every one of these clips has in common, and it is something paranormal investigators, retired highway patrol officers, and cryptid researchers will say in almost the same words if you ask them off the record. The figures appear at the edge, not in the center of the lane, not in the open. They appear right at the boundary between what the headlights can illuminate and what they cannot. The Pennsylvania figure stepped from the tree line into the road and back. The I-4 woman stood in the median, half-lit. The Texas passenger occupied the front seat of a moving car, a space the dashcam was angled at but never fully focused on. The New Mexico animal crossed the dirt road at the exact distance where the high beams begin to weaken, and the Vermont eyes stayed in the trees, never crossing into the road, present only as reflections at the absolute outer limit of what the rear camera could resolve. That is not random. That is whatever these things are, knowing exactly how far a pair of headlights actually reaches. There is a second pattern that runs through the folklore around stories like these, the kind of detail the people who collect them always seem to land on. The roads where these clips supposedly get recorded are almost always the same kind of road: two-lane, rural, built across or alongside old burial ground, abandoned settlement, or land that changed hands violently a long time ago. The I-4 dead zone in Florida famously sits over the lost graves of a failed 1880s immigrant colony. That part is genuine local history, paved over when the highway went in. The other roads in these stories get tied, in the retelling, to the same kind of past: contested borderland in West Texas, ancient Pueblo country in New Mexico, twice logged and twice abandoned forest in northern Vermont. Whether any specific grave sits under any specific mile marker is exactly the kind of claim that grows in the telling. But the shape of the legend never changes. The roads remember what was there before the pavement, and the dash cams, the story goes, just record what the roads occasionally show. The reason any of these recordings still exist is the same reason the cases in our last videos still exist. The cameras kept rolling when the people inside them stopped trusting their own eyes. Without the Pennsylvania driver's stock dashcam, the Hookstown figure is one more story in a Facebook group. Without that I-4 clip, the dead zone woman is just regional folklore. Without the rideshare driver's interior camera, the Texas hitchhiker is a single weird night that no one would believe. Without the wildlife biologist's Garmin unit, the New Mexico chupacabra is a journal entry with no photograph. And without the retired teacher's dual-camera Christmas present from her son, the 7 pairs of eyes in the Vermont pines never get counted. The footage is the witness. The driver is just the person sitting in front of it. So here is what I want you to think about, and I want your honest answer in the comments. If you are alone on a rural road after midnight, and your headlights catch something standing in the lane that does not look right, what do you do? Do you stop, the way the Pennsylvania driver did, and let the camera record whatever it is until it leaves on its own? Or do you put your foot down and drive straight through the space it is standing in, and trust that physics will take care of the rest? Tell me which one you are in the comments, because the split on this question is always closer to 50-50 than anyone expects. If this video got under your skin, hit that like button so it surfaces for every late-night driver on the platform, and pass it along to the friend who insists rural highways at 2 a.m. are no different than any other drive. Make sure you are subscribed, because next week we are opening 5 trail cam clips that recorded the same figure walking past the same camera on 5 different nights, and the 5th night is the one nobody has been able to explain.